Thanks for staying with us. You're watching What Now? Let's turn attention now to Africa, where Sudan's Prime Minister has announced the return of the government to the country's capital, Khartoum. This comes after the symbolic crossing of the mark of 1,000 days of civil war. The government was forced to flee from Khartoum to Port Sudan in April 2023, after the city fell to the paramilitary rapid support forces. Prime Minister Kamel Idris calls it the return of a government of hope. He's promising the restoration of public services, including the rebuilding of hospitals, schools, water systems, electricity, and sanitation networks. According to the Prime Minister, the goal is to revive a city whose infrastructure has been devastated by war. More than 1 million people have reportedly returned to Khartoum, but the UN warns that fighting between the army and RSF forces continues in Kordofan. Right, for analysis of this development, we're joined by African Affairs analyst Dr. Patrick Coker. Good to have you join us, Dr. Patrick.
Thank you very much.
So 1,000 days into this war, just barely slightly more than 1,000 days into this war, how significant is this breakthrough for the army and the Sudanese people, the return to the capital, Khartoum?
Thank you. This is a significant step towards stabilizing the political and administrative framework after a prolonged conflict and displacement of millions of Sudanese. And I believe that the presence of the Sudanese government will definitely help to restore public services. However, we must exercise cautious optimism.
And that's where I really want to pick up from, because when you look at the several indices, for example, both sides are backed, as the RSF and the army are backed by foreign powers who poured in weapons into the country. Right now, we believe that there, a lot of light arms in Sudan. The rapid support forces also grew out of the Janjaweed in 2013, which means that any group can metamorphose from the RSF as well. I'm wondering if Sudan has really entered an era of peace and hope, as expressed by General Al-Burhan.
This is why we must exercise caution and insist that the warring parties go to the table to resolve the issues. I can assure you that if this is not done, RSF will still work towards destabilizing the victory and indeed deny Sudanese the peace that they deserve. We must now call on AU and other regional bodies, as well as to step in quickly and ensure that the Sudanese government embraces
Dr. Cook, are you still there? I just want to be sure.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right.
So, the internet is a little slow.
All right, because we missed your last statement when you were talking about just to ensure that the Sudanese government embraces, and that's where we stop. I just want to be sure what you wanted them to embrace.
Yeah, the Sudanese government that has taken the capital must embrace peace. That means agree to go to the table and we come up with a negotiated, comprehensive peace that will be inclusive and will address humanitarian challenges that are of enormous, situation in that sub-region.
But Dr. Coker, in a really long time, we see now that peace agreements don't seem as effective as they used to be, and for a number of reasons. and both sides don't respect it. We also see that, as in the case of the RSF, new groups, or splinter groups seems to be, spring up from old groups who were not originally part of the agreement. And I'm wondering what would guarantee lasting peace in Sudan and what should be the framework for that peace agreement.
We have to go on a twin track approach, the carrot and the stick. Every organizations around the world must now step up. For example, I expect the ICC to now go into the capital and investigate atrocities committed by all parties. Secondly, I also expect the United Nations to step up with all their partnerships and relationships, as well as all mechanisms to attract all the parties to the table. AU will play a major role in this regard because they have continued to be, they have been engaged, and they must now step up. IGAD will also be helpful. Basically, this is the time to all get the international community, the regional bodies to the table and invite all the parties to the conflict to discuss very serious issues. First, they must open humanitarian corridors. A lot of suffering is going on. Women and children are suffering. I gathered that about 1.8 million Sudanese have gone back to the capital, but I can assure you they're going back to a capital that is filled when it comes to public services. No healthcare service, no water
schools,
supply.
No water. And I saw, Dr. Cook, I saw a couple.
No schools, no electricity.
Yes. And I'm sure you've seen those videos as well, on social media being reported by credible media outlets, of just pictures coming from Sudan of what the capital now looks like. It is a very gory and a very sad situation to see that people are returning to ruins, and where to start from is a big problem. The UN already described the situation as the world's worst humanitarian crisis. And we understand that around 12 million people have been forced, from their homes. So you mentioned 1.8 million returning. That's nothing compared to those still out of the country. Just speak to us about what efforts to restore public services for residents and revive a city whose infrastructure has been quietly devastated should look like. Should the international community also come, to help in rebuilding Sudan? And where should rebuilding begin?
From experience in West Africa, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, we have this intervention called Quick Impact Projects. These projects are intervention to quickly provide services to the poor and needy and the war-weary civilians. Such interventions do not wait for the vagaries of meetings, and all the bureaucracies and protocols. As I speak, I expect that AU, the UN, and all the other developmental agencies, especially UNICEF, UNDP, should be able to set up a task force that will carry out quick intervention projects to, of course, help people come out of a crisis. If this is done, then it creates that gap. And humanitarian corridor must be opened. We must allow aids to come in now to help women, children, to, get out of the crisis. Following that, there must be a credible, comprehensive, and inclusive talks, which must involve everybody. You leave one out, then you are unlikely to achieve much. when it comes to implementation of the peace process. I will also expect that the UN Security Council or the United Nations basically should be discussing on ways and means to come out with resolutions to help move the process forward. More than anything, Sudanese themselves must be ready to embrace peace.
Absolutely.
If they are not, then it will continue to linger.
All right. Well, we'll see how things play out. We're following developments there. It's almost 3 years of that war. Thank you so much for your time. As always, African Affairs Analyst, Dr. Patrick Coker.
Thank you very much.